Most guys think they're winning when they say, "You're so beautiful," or "You look hot tonight." And sure, it's flattering, but here's the truth: she's heard that line 100 times before. It doesn't separate you from the crowd. In fact, it almost makes you blend in, because every man defaults to it. Women don't crave recycled compliments. They crave the ones that make them stop and think, "Wow, he actually noticed me." When all you do is point out what's obvious on the surface, you're not making her feel special. You're just repeating what every other guy has already said. And that's the difference between being forgettable and being unforgettable. What most men miss is that women don't just want to be noticed for how they look. They want to be noticed for the way they make you feel. When you tell a woman, "I love the way your energy changes a room," or "being around you makes everything lighter," you're not talking about her appearance. You're talking about her presence. That's powerful because beauty fades into the background, but the way someone makes you feel sticks. When she realizes you see her impact, not just her image, suddenly she feels magnetic, like she has this rare ability to shift your world just by being herself. And that's a compliment that no mirror can ever give her. And then there's the compliment that most men never think to give, the one that goes straight to her mind. When you say to her, "I love the way you think," or "the way you see the world is so refreshing," you're telling her that her intelligence, her ideas, her perspective, it all matters. That's huge because every woman wants to feel that she's more than just attractive. She wants to feel captivating. And when you admire the way her mind works, you're not only separating yourself from the guys who only notice her looks, you're showing her that what makes her unforgettable isn't her face or her body, it's her essence. That's the kind of compliment that echoes in her head long after the conversation ends. The mistake most men make is thinking a compliment has to be universal, something any woman would love to hear. But the truth is, the more specific you are, the more powerful it becomes. If you notice the way she laughs at her own jokes, or the way she tucks her hair behind her ear when she's nervous, and you call that out, suddenly she feels seen in a way no one else has bothered to notice. That's what makes it stick. It's not just you're beautiful. It's that little thing you do makes you irresistible. Specificity tells her you're paying attention, that you're not just throwing words around, but actually observing who she really is. And that kind of compliment is unforgettable because it feels like it was meant only for her. One of the deepest things a woman craves is to be reminded that she's more than her reflection. When you notice the effect she has on people, when you say, "You have this way of making everyone feel comfortable," or "I love how you bring calm into chaos," you're speaking to her presence. That tells her she's not just attractive, she's impactful. It shifts the compliment from being about her body to being about her influence, her energy, the invisible force she carries with her. And when you do that, you make her feel irreplaceable, because beauty can be matched, but presence, that's one of a kind. What every woman secretly wants is to feel like she can't be swapped out for someone else. If you give a compliment that any guy could hand out to any woman, it loses its power. But when you highlight something uniquely hers, maybe it's her quirky sense of humor, the way she connects with people, or even that little spark in her when she talks about what she loves, you're telling her, that's not just attractive, that's you, and no one else has it. Suddenly, she doesn't feel like she's part of the crowd. She feels like she stands apart. And when you make her feel one of a kind, that's when she starts to see you as one of a kind too. The art of a great compliment is knowing how to strike that balance between depth and lightness. If you go too heavy, it feels like pressure, but if you keep it too shallow, it feels forgettable. When you say something thoughtful with a playful edge like, "I love how your mind never stops working. It's kind of intimidating, but in the best way." You give her depth without drowning her in seriousness. It's meaningful, but it also makes her smile. That balance keeps the moment alive because she feels both admired and at ease, and that's the kind of compliment that she'll replay in her head long after you've said it. Most people underestimate just how much sincerity matters when it comes to giving a compliment. They think words alone are enough, as if saying the right phrase in the right order will magically open someone's heart. But words without sincerity are empty shells. They sound nice, but they don't carry weight, they don't land. A woman can feel in a split second whether what you've said came from genuine observation, or if it was just another line you pulled out because you thought it would work. And here's the truth: when she feels like it's rehearsed or forced, the compliment not only loses power, it can actually backfire. It makes her feel like you're trying to manipulate her, not appreciate her. Sincerity is that invisible ingredient that can't be faked. It's in the tone of your voice, the timing, the way you look at her when you say it. It's the difference between reading words off a script and speaking straight from your gut. Imagine someone telling you you're really smart, but their eyes are already darting around the room, or their tone sounds distracted. It doesn't land right, but if someone pauses, looks at you with intent and says, "I love how you think about things. It actually challenges me in the best way," you feel it. That difference is sincerity. It's not just about the compliment, it's about the belief behind the compliment. And here's what most people get wrong. They think sincerity is about being perfect with words. It's not. In fact, sometimes the most sincere compliments are the ones that are a little messy, a little unpolished. Think about it. When you stumble because you're trying to find the right way to express what you feel, that hesitation can actually make it more real. A polished line might sound smooth, but a genuine thought, even if it comes out imperfect, has 10 times the impact. Because she knows it wasn't practiced. She knows you weren't saying it just to get a reaction. You were saying it because you couldn't help but say it. Now, women are incredibly perceptive. They pick up on body language, tone shifts, micro expressions. You might think you're being slick, but if the compliment isn't genuine, she'll know. If you tell her you're amazing, but your energy doesn't match the words, she'll feel the gap. And that gap tells her you didn't really mean it. You just said it to fill silence or to score points. But when you mean what you say, your energy aligns. The words, the tone, the look in your eyes, they all match. That alignment is what makes her believe you. Let's take an example. Imagine 2 scenarios. In the first, a man looks at a woman and says, "You're beautiful." She smiles politely. She's heard it before, and she moves on. In the second scenario, he pauses mid-conversation, almost like he wasn't planning to say it, and says, "You know, there's something about the way you smile when you're passionate about something. It's honestly beautiful." Now what's the difference? The first is generic, the second is specific and heartfelt. But beyond the words, the second feels like it wasn't premeditated. It feels like he was caught off guard by her presence and had to voice it. That's sincerity. Another piece of sincerity is timing. A compliment delivered at the wrong time can feel calculated. If you flood someone with flattery right when you meet them, it feels like you're trying too hard, like you're relying on words instead of presence. But if you wait, if you take your time to actually see her, to actually observe something about her that resonates with you, and then you share it naturally, it lands. It lands because it doesn't feel like a tactic. It feels like a genuine reflection of what you're experiencing in that moment. Think of it like this. Sincerity is about letting your words match your experience. If you're genuinely captivated by her laugh, don't just say, "Nice laugh." Instead, let yourself feel it. Maybe even laugh with her and then say, "God, your laugh. It's contagious. I could listen to it all day." That's not a rehearsed line. That's your real, time emotional experience put into words. That's what sincerity looks like, and here's where it gets deeper. Sincere compliments are not just about what you notice in her. They are about what you reveal in yourself. When you tell a woman, "I love how your energy calms me down," you're not just complimenting her, you're showing vulnerability. You're admitting that she impacts you, that she changes you. That kind of sincerity is magnetic because it's not about impressing her, it's about connecting with her. It's saying, "You affect me in a real way, and I need you to know that." That's far more powerful than just tossing out a line. So, how do you actually cultivate sincerity? You start by slowing down. Instead of rushing to fill space with compliments, you pay attention. You watch, you listen, you notice. The little details are what fuel sincere words. If you're really listening, she'll reveal things about herself, her passions, her quirks, her struggles. And when you reference those in a compliment, it shows you've actually seen her, not just looked at her. That's why sincerity can't be faked. It requires presence. You can't give a real compliment if you're not really paying attention. Let me give you another example. She's telling you about a project she's been working on for weeks, and most guys might just say, "Wow, that's impressive. That's nice, but surface level." Instead, if you lean in and say, "I can tell how much this means to you. It's inspiring to see how dedicated you are when you care about something," now she feels deeply recognized. That's sincerity in action. It's not just about what she did. It's about you reflecting back the passion and commitment you genuinely noticed. And sincerity has a ripple effect. When a woman feels a compliment is real, she doesn't just hear it. She internalizes it. It sticks with her. She replays it later, not because of the words themselves, but because of the feeling it gave her. She felt valued, she felt seen, she felt important, and that emotional imprint is what makes her think about you when you're not around. Flattery fades, sincerity lingers. Now some men worry, what if I say something and it doesn't come out right? But here's the thing. If it's sincere, even if it's awkward, it will still land. In fact, sometimes the awkwardness makes it better, because awkwardness is human. It shows you care enough to risk stumbling. Women aren't looking for perfection in delivery. They're looking for truth in intention. They'd rather hear something clumsy but heartfelt than something smooth but empty. You see, sincerity also requires courage. It's easy to hide behind generic lines because there's no vulnerability there. Saying "you're beautiful" is safe. It doesn't reveal much about you. But telling her, "I feel calmer when you're around," or "talking to you makes me feel alive again," that's risky because it's personal. It reveals your truth, and that's why it's powerful. Women crave that depth, that honesty, that willingness to be real. The irony is, most men chase techniques to stand out when the real secret is sincerity, because sincerity automatically separates you from the crowd. Anyone can memorize a line, but not everyone can pay attention, feel something genuine, and then express it. That's rare, and because it's rare, it's valuable. A woman can get 10 generic compliments in a night and forget every one of them. But one sincere compliment delivered with presence and authenticity will echo in her mind for weeks. Sincerity is also about restraint. You don't need to constantly shower her with words. In fact, too many compliments can dilute their impact. It's like perfume. One spray lingers beautifully, but if you drench yourself in it, it becomes overwhelming. The most sincere compliments are the ones that are earned by the moment. They arrive naturally, not forcefully. They are not a strategy, they're a reflection of a genuine feeling you couldn't hold back. And let's not forget, sincerity doesn't just make her feel good, it changes the way she sees you. When you're sincere, you come across as confident, grounded, and emotionally intelligent. You're not trying to win her approval with words, you're sharing your truth. That subtle shift changes everything. Instead of her thinking, he's trying to impress me, she thinks, wow, he really sees me, and that makes you unforgettable. So the next time you're about to give a compliment, pause. Ask yourself, do I really mean this? Do I feel this? Am I saying it because I want her to react, or because I can't not say it? If it's the latter, that's sincerity. And that's what she craves more than anything else. Validation is one of the most powerful currencies in human connection, and when it comes to women, it's not the validation of appearance that truly sticks, it's the validation of identity. So many guys think a compliment should be about how she looks, what she's wearing, or how attractive she is. And while those things are nice, they don't penetrate. They bounce off the surface because they don't speak to who she really is. They speak to the shell, not the soul. But when you validate a woman's identity, when you acknowledge the things that make her who she is, you reach her on a level most men never even attempt to touch. Think about it. Anyone can say, "You're gorgeous." It takes no effort, no attention, no real awareness of the person in front of you. But to say, "I love the way you light up when you talk about something you care about," it shows how much passion you have for life. That takes noticing. That takes listening. That takes seeing the actual human being standing in front of you, not just the surface presentation. And when she feels that you've taken the time to actually notice her essence, she doesn't just feel attractive. She feels significant. She feels like her inner world matters. Validation of identity is about showing her that what makes her valuable is not what she was born with, it's what she's built, what she's chosen, what she's grown into. It's about pointing out the choices she makes, the strengths she's developed, the character she's revealed over time. That's the kind of validation that makes her feel respected. And respect is an even deeper craving than desire. Desire makes her feel wanted. Respect makes her feel valued. Now, let's dig into why this matters so much. A lot of women move through life constantly being judged, praised, or critiqued for their appearance. From a young age, they're told they're pretty, or cute, or beautiful. And while those words sound nice, they can start to feel hollow because they become the main lens through which others see them. Imagine hearing the same type of compliment over and over. It loses meaning. But when someone comes along and breaks that cycle by saying, "I love your strength," or "Your determination is inspiring," it's like oxygen. It's refreshing because it validates the parts of her that rarely get recognized. Let me give you an example. Let's say she's been working late nights, pouring herself into a project at work. Most guys wouldn't even notice. But if you look at her and say, "I admire how committed you are. It's amazing to see how much pride you take in what you do," that's not just a compliment. That's validation of her character. That's you saying, "I see the hard work. I see the drive. I see the values behind your actions." And that kind of compliment hits so much deeper than anything about her looks ever could. Here's another layer. When you validate identity, you show her that she's not just an object of attraction, but a person of impact. You're telling her that her way of thinking, her way of showing up in the world, her way of being. It all has value. That's what separates admiration from objectification. Objectification is about what she is. Admiration is about who she is. And every woman secretly craves to be admired for the who, because being admired for who she is makes her feel irreplaceable. Let's imagine a real-life conversation. She's telling you about how she stood up for herself in a difficult situation. The easy response would be, "That's cool." But if you lean in and say, "I love that about you," you don't back down when something matters to you, that shows real courage. Now you've done something most men don't. You've validated her identity. You've reinforced a core part of who she is, and that's unforgettable. Because courage isn't something she put on like a dress. It's part of her being. And notice this: when you compliment a woman's identity, you're also giving her something lasting. Looks change, outfits come off, but her strength, her kindness, her intelligence, her resilience, those are things she carries with her every day of her life. When you validate those, the compliment becomes timeless. She can hold on to it long after the moment passes because it speaks to something permanent. Now some men hesitate here. They think, but isn't complimenting her looks the way to make her feel desired? And the answer is yes, desire has its place. But desire without validation of identity can feel shallow. It can feel transactional, like you're only there for what she offers on the outside. But when you combine desire with identity validation, you create something magnetic. You make her feel both desired and deeply valued. And that combination is addictive. Let's take another scenario. Imagine she's the kind of woman who goes out of her way to make people feel included. Maybe at a party, she notices someone standing alone and brings them into the conversation. Most people wouldn't notice that. But you could say, "I love how you notice people and make them feel seen. It says a lot about who you are." That compliment doesn't just tell her you're watching. It tells her you admire the very fabric of her character. That is validation at its core. And here's why this is so magnetic. When you validate identity, you're essentially holding up a mirror to her best self. You're showing her parts of herself she might even overlook. And when you do that, she starts to feel more herself around you. She associates you with the feeling of being her best self. Think about how powerful that is. If she feels more alive, more respected, more valued every time she's with you, why wouldn't she crave your presence? Validation of identity also shows maturity. It shows you're not just looking for something shallow. You're paying attention to the deeper qualities that truly matter in a relationship. That's rare, and because it's rare, it makes you stand out. Women don't just want someone who notices their beauty. They want someone who notices their essence. When you do that, you're not just complimenting her, you're building connection. And connection is the foundation of everything. You can have chemistry without connection, but chemistry fades. Connection endures. Compliments that validate identity build connection because they're rooted in truth. They're not transactional, they're relational. They say, "I see you and I value who you are." That message is like fuel for intimacy. Another important point: validation of identity doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. It can be subtle, casual, woven into everyday conversation. You don't need a big moment to say, "I admire how thoughtful you are," when she remembers something small about you. Or, "I love how playful you are." It makes everything feel lighter. When she cracks a joke at the right time. These little validations, sprinkled consistently, create an atmosphere where she feels deeply appreciated for who she is, not just how she looks. And here's something fascinating. When you validate a woman's identity, you also inspire her to live more fully into that identity. Compliments shape behavior. If you constantly tell someone they're beautiful, they focus more on their appearance. If you consistently tell them they're strong, kind, intelligent, they lean more into those qualities. Your words become a mirror she holds up to herself, and when that mirror reflects her best self, she grows. That's why sincere validation isn't just flattering, it's transformational. So if you really want to make an impact, don't just tell her what you see on the surface. Dig deeper. Notice the way she carries herself, the way she treats people, the way she overcomes challenges. And then tell her, not as a strategy, not as a line, but as an observation you couldn't keep to yourself. That's how you validate identity. That's how you make her feel more than beautiful. You make her feel extraordinary. And here's the ultimate truth. When you validate a woman's identity, you're not just complimenting her. You're connecting with her soul. And that connection is what every woman secretly craves more than anything else. What most people don't realize is that the right compliment doesn't just pass through someone's ears. It stays with them. It lingers, it echoes, it becomes part of how they see themselves. And this is why point 10 is so powerful. The right compliment given with intention becomes unforgettable. It's not just a nice moment. It's not just a smile and then forgotten. It imprints itself. It becomes something she thinks about later when she's alone. Something she replays in her head when she needs a reminder of her worth. And here's the secret. Most men never learn how to give this kind of compliment, which is why they remain forgettable. Think about the compliments you've received in your own life. Which ones stayed with you? Chances are they weren't about your looks. They weren't about something generic. They were about something that made you feel seen in a way you didn't expect. Maybe someone said, "You have a way of making people feel safe when you talk to them," or "I admire how much you care, even when it's hard." Those kinds of compliments don't fade because they're not just words. They're mirrors. They reflect back something essential about who you are. Now, here's the mistake most men make. They assume that more compliments equal more impact. They think if they keep throwing words at her, beautiful, sexy, gorgeous, stunning, they'll win her over. But what happens instead? The compliments lose power. They become noise. It's like hearing a song on repeat 100 times. It loses its magic. But when you choose your words carefully, when you notice something she hasn't heard 1,000 times, that compliment doesn't just land, it lives. It becomes part of her story. Let's paint a picture. Imagine you're on a date and she's telling you about her family, maybe even something vulnerable about her childhood. Most guys would nod, maybe say, "That's interesting," and then move on. But you look at her and say, "I admire how open you are about your life. It makes me feel closer to you." That's not a throwaway line. That's not generic. That's specific to the moment, to her, to the courage it took for her to share. That compliment doesn't fade, because every time she remembers telling that story, she'll also remember the way you made her feel safe and appreciated for sharing it. And that's the magic of unforgettable compliments. They tie themselves to moments. They become anchors in memory. Whenever she thinks back to that conversation, your words are attached. So instead of being just a date, you become part of her narrative. That's why sincerity and timing matter so much, because when the right words hit at the right moment, they can last for years. But here's the deeper truth. An unforgettable compliment doesn't just stick because of what was said. It sticks because of how it made her feel about herself. If you tell her she's beautiful, she might feel good for a second. But if you tell her, "I love how fearless you are when you go after what you want," she carries that with her. Because it validates not just her looks, but her identity, her courage, her choices. It tells her she's more than enough. That's the kind of compliment that gets replayed on the hard days when she doubts herself. That's the kind of compliment that makes her think of you when you're not there. And this is why you have to understand, compliments are not about manipulation, they're about impact. They're about leaving someone better than you found them. When you give a compliment that speaks to her soul, you're not just making her like you. You're giving her a gift. You're giving her a new way to see herself, and that gift doesn't get returned, it gets treasured. Think about the difference between fast food and a gourmet meal. Fast food fills you up in the moment, but you forget about it tomorrow. A gourmet meal, on the other hand, becomes an experience. You remember the flavors, the atmosphere, the feeling. Generic compliments are like fast food. They satisfy for a second. Unforgettable compliments are like gourmet meals. They become experiences that stay in the memory. Let me show you another scenario. You're walking with her, and she's talking about something she's passionate about. Maybe her career, her art, or her dream project. Most men would just smile and nod, but you lean in and say, "It's inspiring to see how much this lights you up. I could listen to you talk about this for hours." That compliment isn't about her looks. It's not about flattery. It's about her essence, her passion, her fire. And that sticks, because passion is personal. And when you validate it, she feels like her inner world matters to you. Now, let's go even deeper. The most unforgettable compliments are the ones that reveal vulnerability in you. When you say, "The way you challenge me makes me want to be better," that's not just about her. It's about you admitting she impacts you. That's a risk. That's vulnerable. But that's also what makes it unforgettable. Because now the compliment isn't just about observation, it's about connection. You're telling her, "You change me, you affect me, you matter." And nothing is more memorable than being told you matter. Here's another layer. Unforgettable compliments often point out what's rare. If you compliment something everyone notices, it doesn't carry much weight. But if you point out something unique, something she didn't even realize was attractive, it hits differently. Imagine telling her, "I love how patient you are. It's rare to find someone who makes people feel so understood." She may have never thought of patience as attractive, but now she sees it through your eyes. And because it's rare, it becomes unforgettable. And let's not forget, delivery matters. The most powerful compliments are often the quiet ones, the ones whispered, not shouted, the ones said in passing, not announced. A compliment given in a soft moment, when it's just the two of you, carries a different weight than one shouted in front of a crowd. It feels intimate, personal, secret almost, and that secrecy makes it sacred. She holds on to it because it feels like it was meant only for her. Think of it like this. Unforgettable compliments are not about making a big impression in the moment. They're about creating a lasting impression in the heart. They're not fireworks, they're embers. Fireworks are loud, bright, and gone in seconds. Embers glow quietly, but they last, and the right compliment is an ember. It stays warm long after the words were spoken. Now, some of you might be thinking, "This sounds like a lot of pressure. How do I make every compliment unforgettable?" And the answer is, you don't. Not every compliment has to change her life, but every compliment should be real, because when it's real, it has a chance to stick. You don't aim for unforgettable, you aim for truth, and often, truth is unforgettable on its own. Here's the irony. The compliments that become unforgettable are often the ones you didn't plan. They're the ones that slip out because you're so moved in the moment, you can't help but say them. That's sincerity in action. It's not calculated, it's not strategic, It's spontaneous truth, and that's what makes it powerful. So, what's the takeaway? If you want to give a compliment that lingers, that she replays in her head for years, don't focus on being clever or smooth. Focus on being present. Focus on noticing the details. Focus on saying what you actually feel, even if it's messy, even if it's vulnerable. Because the compliments that come from your heart are the ones that go straight to hers, and those are the ones she'll never forget.